of evil. This is the most difficult one for believers in God to deal with. I've known many people who've doubted God because of this. There are many types of logical problems of evil. There's the evidential problem, the personal problem, the pastoral problem, and it goes on. It states as follows. If God exists, then God is omnipotent, omniscient, and morally perfect, or omnibeneficent. If God is omnipotent, that means all-powerful, then he has the power to eliminate all evil. If God is omniscient, then he knows about the evil before it happens. If God is more perfectly good, then he has a desire to eliminate all evil. But evil happens. If evil exists, then God exists. Then either God doesn't have the power to eliminate evil, or God is evil, or God just doesn't exist. And that's called the problem of evil. The problem of evil. And finally, the other and final disproof of God is from science and cosmology. David Hume argued against designing the universe on the basis that it was designed, it could have happened by chance. Given enough time and chance, any given combinations can occur. The universe may be just a happy accident of chance reshuffling itself into motion. Now, if matter had been in motion eternally, given the immensity of the universe, it would be reasonable to conclude that chance occurrences of life in some teeny corner of the universe is the best explanation for its origin. This is not just some concoction of a 17th century scholar. Even Stephen Hawking, which I'll talk about later, one of the greatest minds in this world has ever come across, has also came across very similar hypotheses. In The Grand Design, the amazing claim is, in his book, The Grand Design, that there is a law such as gravity, and the universe can and will create itself from absolutely nothing. Okay, let's address these arguments one at a time. Are we ready? A. First one, disproofs of God from philosophy and the infinite regress issue. There are two boys arguing. One boy says, where'd those trees come from? The other boy says, God made the trees. And the flowers, who made the flowers? Well, God made the flowers too. And the other boy says to the other, well, what about the cats? Well, God made those. And the dogs, God. The mountains, God. The crickets, God. The mosquitoes, God. Who made you? God. And then the other boy looks at his friend and says, then who made God? And the little boy looks at his friend and says, well, God made himself. That is illogical, of course. God can't make himself because he would need to be there before himself to make himself. So no, that doesn't work. Are there better answers than that one? Yes. It's called theology, for those who are interested. Aristotle rightly said, that God is the uncaused cause, the uncaused cause, the unmoved mover. God, by definition, is uncaused. He is necessary. Everything else is contingent. In order for anything to exist, there must be a necessary thing before there was anything contingent. It's a category mistake to even ask the question. It's a pseudo question, for God does not have a creator or a source. It's like asking, what does yellow smell like? Or how heavy is your smile? You can't answer the question because it's a nonsense question. So God is the first cause, the uncaused being, the necessary absolute without a beginning. Asking what caused God is like asking what caused the uncaused. How are you going to answer that one? You can't, because it's a pseudo question. Who was there before the first cause, the uncaused being, the necessary absolute without a beginning? Impossible for me to answer the question because it goes against the very notion and definition of what God is. Richard Dean wrote that God has no need to be created since he exists outside of time, where cause and effect do operate, or within multiple dimensions of time, such as there is no beginning of God in the planes of time. Hence, God is eternal, having never been uncreated, or created, excuse me. Theologian R.C. Sproul said that God is not caused because God is not an effect. God is not caused because God is not an effect. Only things that are made are effects. God is not an effect, therefore God doesn't have a cause. Furthermore, if you don't like this answer, my atheist colleagues, you should not dismiss it, because take the hypothesis to its logical exclusion. What if at the end of time there is a God, and you do come before God at the end, and you stand before him at the end of all the end in the judgment, and God says, why do you not believe? Because I don't know who made you. Would that work? I don't think that'll work very well. Because God could easily respond, fine, you don't know who made me. You're not responsible to who made me. You're responsible to me, who made you. So in that sense, it doesn't work, assuming there's a God, of course. The paradox of omnipotence, paradise, that would be a nice place to be now. The paradox of omnipotence, okay. Can God make another God? If they arm wrestled, who would win? Can he make a rabbit so fast he can't catch it? How about blueberries? So many blueberries that he can't eat them. Or a video game he can't beat. Or an elephant he can't sit on. And on and on and on. I could go on with this. It gets ridiculous after a while. Theologian Wayne Grudem, my former professor, said the following. God's omnipotence means that God is able to do all his holy will. The word omnipotence is derived from two Latin words meaning omni, all, and potence, power, meaning all power. Whereas God's freedom referred to the fact that there are no external constraints on God's decisions. God's omnipotence has reference to his power to do whatever he decides to do. The power is frequently quoted in the ancient scriptures. The angel Gabriel said to Mary, with God nothing is impossible, and Jesus himself said, with God all things are possible. What does that mean? What does omnipotence actually mean in the philosophical terminology? Basically, it means God is a being of maximum power. The most power you could possibly have, God has it. That is, the most powerful being in the universe. As my son Daniel said, Tata, God, omnipotent means God is stronger and mightier than all the peoples in the world. He's 4 years old and he's learning his theology. I'm always asking him these questions. I don't know if it's torture or having fun. In my book, Debating Christian Theism, Charles Tulliver said the following. Divine power is not then an abstract or obtruse concept of maximum blue root power, a power to do whatever, but the concept of praiseworthy power. That's what omnipotence is. Praiseworthy power, the power to do the best and the highest, or Optimus Maximus. Optimus Maximus. And no, it's not the Autobot leader. Even with this omnipotence, there are things God cannot do. Yes, you heard me right. Like sin, or lie, or make illogically impossible things exist, like square circles, or lying truth tellers, or married bachelors, although there are many who think they are. If God can override the logical laws, now assume he can, then he can create 10,000 berry pancakes that he can't eat and eat them. Or he can create rabbits that he can't catch and catch them. So if God is over above the laws of logic, then he can do illogical things, which I don't think will work because it's a problem, because logic is in the very nature of God. If you were to read the ancient document called the Book of John in the very first chapter, in the very first verse, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word became God. Later on it talks about that. The word is logos. Theologians have understood logos to be the very nature of God. So going against logos is going against himself. St. Thomas Aquinas said God is able to do impossible things like part the Red Sea or raise the dead, but not illogical things like walk on water and not walk on water at the same time, or make married bachelors. Descartes, on the other hand, is another Christian philosopher who said God can do the illogical because it's just beyond my understanding. But they're all different perspectives on it.